All right, guys, so welcome back. This is part 2 of the subtle arts of not giving a fuck, okay? And, if you haven't watched part 1, go back. It was the previous video. Go watch part 1 and then come back to this video because both these parts, you can watch this without watching part 1, but both of them kind of feed off each other in a certain kind of way. And everything in these videos is very, very important if you want to live a very high quality of life and just be more detached in general, which also will contribute to being even more, happier. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Number 1 for part 2 here. We should not always trust our emotions and feelings because sometimes they are misleading, okay? So we shouldn't always trust our emotions and feelings because sometimes they are misleading. What does that mean? Because we're taught to always our emotions are everything. Like if we're feeling fearful about something, then just don't do it, right? Don't ever do it. It's just not true, okay? Because our brains are trained or meant for survival, right? They're just trying to help us survive, and sometimes they go into overdrive, especially if there's any kind of trauma that you've experienced in your past. And traumas, a lot of people, they think of trauma as these big, huge, it's PTSD or you've been raped or you've seen someone get killed or something. That's not, what trauma, that's, extreme trauma. But then there's also all kinds of different traumas that we experience as we're younger. For example, when you're let's say 6 or 7 years old and you lose your mother or your father in a grocery store, that is a traumatic event for that 6 or 7-year-old child. So it's whatever's perceived as this traumatic kind of situation is a trauma. So we all have lots of traumas, from our childhoods. Some people have really extreme ones, and most people have smaller to medium ones, or whatever it is. So our brains, once there's trauma there, our brains overreact to certain things, like survival, the survival mode kind of kicks in, the fight or flight kind of kicks in, and it overreacts to certain something. One good example would be, public speaking. Some people are deathly afraid of public speaking when, in fact, when you look at the reality of the situation, you cannot die during public speaking. It's not realistic to have an actual strong fear there. It doesn't make any sense, right? So the reason why public speaking is the number one fear for all humans, on Earth, you can Google that. The reason why that is because our brains are thousands of years old, and back in the day, if let's say, for example, you were public speaking and you didn't fit into the tribe, or you were ostracized or left out of the group, then you would starve and die. So our brains are still programmed from thousands of years ago to be scared of something like that, where it's just you're public speaking and whoa, if people don't accept me, I'm going to die. That's literally what's happening in your brain, but there's no truth to that. It's completely an illusion. So sometimes our feelings will come up, but it's all made up in your mind. It's crazy, right? You can make yourself feel so scared about something, so paranoid about something that's not even real. So it's crazy how it works. So don't always trust your emotions and your feelings. Yes, sometimes your emotions and your feelings, they're meant to help you survive. Let's say, for example, if somebody pulls a gun to you, you're gonna feel a flood of fear, right? It's gonna just take over your entire mind, body, and soul, because we're meant for survival. So that fear is just gonna take over. But let's say, for example, if you're speaking in front of a group of 10 people and you feel that same exact flood of fear, that's not supposed to happen. That's not normal. So you don't have to, your emotions are meant for that survival, and sometimes they will overreact based on triggers in the past or based on illusions or things like that. And you don't always have to think that you're in danger when that happens. It's weird the way it works, because sometimes, your feelings will feel like you're in danger or survival mode, but it's if you look at the reality of the situation, it's just not true, okay? So let's go to number 2. You are 100% responsible to how you react and perceive negative events that occur in your life. You are 100% responsible, okay, to how you react and perceive negative events that, occur in your life. You have that power, okay? So view it as a challenge / test to see how fast you can let go and move on. Okay, there's certain people that can, have something negative occur in their life. And we're talking about like nothing really crazy, like you saw like a murder in front of you or something. We're talking about like, just like, let's say for example, somebody lost their job or somebody lost their significant other. Let's say you lost, your girlfriend, like you guys broke up or you got fired from a job. Let's just use those two for an example. One person may recover within a couple of weeks in both scenarios. They're like, oh, I lost my job, let's get out there and move on and find another job. Or I lost my girlfriend, or let's keep it moving and let's see how we can, find another one, right? And then somebody on this side, so these are the extremes. There's one person on this side that'll just move on quite quickly, pretty detached, can keep it moving. Like, will be like, all right, these are very negative occurrences. They'll feel the pain of that. They'll, process it, but they'll move on, right? And then there's somebody all the way on this side, right? Years later, they're still caught up on like this breakup and like they're still letting it run them and they're still like, oh my God, so and then like or like somebody on this side, like years later, even at their new job, they're like, oh, I wish I was at my old job, it was better, like this and that. They're still hung up on it. Years later, this person, maybe a week or two, this person, years later, they're still hung up on it, still run by it. So it's in your responsibility to take control of your life, okay? To take control of your life and realize that you're 100% responsible for how you're perceiving these things, right? If you want to move on with your life, you must learn to let go and process those emotions and then move on, okay? So view it as a test. If something negative happens in your life, something like that, view it as a test. How fast can I move on and let go of this and not let this hold me back as if it's like this huge detriment and I'm like paralyzed from it, right? How fast can you let go and move on? View it as a challenge and a test. The next time something negative happens, maybe somebody at your work, maybe you're working with somebody and somebody's yelling at you. Somebody yelled at you, your boss or whatever yelled at you and screamed at you, and you feel like shit and like you're caught up in it and you're like, oh God, for weeks you're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking. How fast can you let go and move on? And in that case, maybe you would have to talk to that certain somebody that disrespects you. You're like, hey, listen, like you disrespected me, this and that. This is how I feel. Have that conversation and then let go and move on so you can process it, or if you don't want to have that conversation, then you have to learn to let go and move on without the conversation, right? Or, go get a different job if you feel disrespected by somebody in your workplace or something's not being handled or something like that. So it's really how fast can you process those emotions firstly, and then how fast can you move on from there. So view it as a test. View it as a test because we are 100% responsible how we react and perceive these things. Okay, we don't have to make them this huge deal if we don't want to. Number 3, if this one's powerful. Okay, if you're watching this and you're one of these people, think about this. If it feels like it's you against the world, if you're watching this and it feels like it's you against the world, you're like, it's me against everybody else. You're like competing with everybody and you're just like, if it ever feels that way, you walk into your office at work and you're like looking at people, you're like, it's like me against them. It's me against them. It's always me against them. Chances are it's just you versus yourself. Okay, you're your own worst enemy. You're making these things up like in your mind that everyone's an enemy and like I gotta compete against every single person here. If it feels like that for you, if it feels like it's you against the world, it's really you against yourself. You're gonna have to overcome that and get into this, get into a different paradigm. Okay, there's actually a guy I watch on YouTube. He talks about, public speaking and stuff. He says some public speakers, or when he was a public speaker in the beginning, he used to view it as like, he's like, it's me against the crowd. I gotta win them over. I gotta give a compelling speech. He gets out there, is like, in this competing kind of frame of mind. And it comes out like forced, like he's like public speaking in a very forced kind of way. But he said when he switched to the collaborative frame, where we're together, it's us, we're in this together. It's not me against them. We're in connection. We're literally connected with each other. We're in collaboration. Okay, when he came at it with that frame, where it's just like everyone, it was like they were all together, like we were all succeeding together. It wasn't like me against them. I gotta prove something to them. I gotta do this and that. It was more like a relaxed, like we're all in this together. We're all collaborating. It's not me against them. It's me with them. That changes everything. That changes everything. It's me with them. We're collaborating. Okay, we're not competing. Once you drop that competing frame where you're competing against everybody and everything, and this is something I've had in my life for a very long time. I've been in that competing frame, that resistant frame where you're just like trying to break through barriers and walls, and it's me against everybody. This kind of mindset is not healthy and it's not good. It's you against yourself at that point. You want to come from the mindset of of abundance, where it's just we're all together. This is all an abundant, happy situation, right? I'm not against the person I'm talking to. I'm not going against somebody. We're connecting together. It's not me against them. It's me with them. It's us, right? So once you get into that frame of mind, that helps a great deal with a lot of different things, any different social things, or any different, public speak, anything, relationships, that goes for anything, right? It's us. It's not me versus them. Okay. All right. So that's just something to think about. And that wraps it up for the subtle arts of not giving a fuck. I hope you guys enjoyed both the parts to this. If you liked any of the parts, part 1 or part 2, whatever, drop a like on the video. If there's something you want to discuss further, drop a comment. I read all the comments. So drop a comment, and or if there's something you disagree with or something you want to challenge me on, whatever it is, drop a comment. Let's talk, and subscribe if you're not subscribed, and I'll see you guys in the next video.